CFPUA, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. We need to excuse Mr. Briggs and Mr. Porter for the meeting today. All those in favor say aye. All right. And we have one modification to the agenda. I need a motion to amend the agenda by moving the economic impact study to the finance committee report. All those in favor say aye. All right. Motion to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye. The approval of the minutes.
The minutes from our last meeting are included in your packet. If there's no discussion, I move that we adopt those minutes.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. And at this point, we would request that our legislative delegation please join us in the front for some recognition. Everyone around here? So this was a resolution that was approved and voted on last month by our board. And I'm going to read the whole thing because I think it's important so you can listen to it for 2 pages. So this is a Cape Fear Public Utility Authority resolution recognizing our legislative delegation. Whereas the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority is a body politic organized in July 28, 2008 by the City of Wilmington, New Hanover County, North Carolina, to operate water and sewer utilities for the City of Wilmington and New Hanover County. And whereas the majority of the 200,000 customers served by the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority are represented by Senator Michael Lee, Senator Bill Raven, Representative Deb Butler, Representative Ted Davis, and Representative Charles Miller in the North Carolina General Assembly. And whereas Michael Lee was elected by the voters of North Carolina Senate District 7 to represent them in the North Carolina General Assembly and has served 4 terms in his office. North Carolina Senate District 7 includes most of the City of Wilmington and the entirety of unincorporated New Hanover County. And whereas Senator Bill Raven was elected by the voters of North Carolina Senate District 8 to represent them in the North Carolina General Assembly and has served 7 terms in his office, North Carolina Senate District 8 includes Brunswick, Columbus County, and parts of the City of Wilmington. And whereas Representative Deb Butler was elected by the voters of North Carolina House District 18 to represent them in the North Carolina General Assembly and has served over 3 terms in her office. North Carolina House District 18 includes large sections of the City of Wilmington and the northern unincorporated areas of New Hanover County. And whereas Representative Ted Davis was elected by the voters of North Carolina House District 20 to represent them in the North Carolina General Assembly and has served 6 terms in his office. House District 20 includes large sections of the City of Wilmington and the town of Wrightsville Beach. And whereas Representative Charlie Miller was elected by the voters of North Carolina House District 19 to represent them in the General Assembly and has served 2 terms in his office. House District 19 includes the southern unincorporated parts of New Hanover County, the towns of Carolina Beach and Curry Beach, and parts of Brunswick County. And whereas the authority's legislative delegation has consistently supported the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority's mission to provide quality water and wastewater services to our community. And whereas our authority's legislative delegation has consistently sought to protect our communities from fur and polyfluoroalkyl substances contamination, to hold polluters accountable for their impact on our communities, and to foster exposure and risk research to inform the science of PFAS public health impacts. And whereas Representative Butler introduced multiple bills during the 2023 legislative session to expand research about their impacts of PFAS, to limit the use of PFAS in the state of North Carolina, and to require polluters discharging PFAS into North Carolina waters to be held responsible for the negative effects arising out of their contamination, including significant enforcement measures. And whereas Representative Davis introduced the PFAS Pollution and Polluter Liability Act during the 2023 legislative session to protect citizens of North Carolina from the effects and costs of water contaminated by Gen X and other PFAS compounds, including requiring polluters to abate and pay for the costs related to any such contamination. And whereas Senator Lee introduced the Water Safety Act of 2023 to protect citizens from drinking water contamination with PFAS through focused exposure research and risk analysis. And whereas Senator Lee serves as a co-chair of the Senate Standing Committee on Appropriations-Based Budget, and Senator Raymond serves as the chair of the Rule and Operations of the Senate Standing Committee and was a member of the Senate Standing Committee on Appropriations-Based Budget. And whereas Representative Davis and Miller serve as vice chairs of the House Standing Committee on Appropriations. And whereas the authority legislative delegation was instrumental in drafting the 2023 Appropriations Act, funding the government of the state of North Carolina and appropriating state general funds through the fiscal year. And whereas the 2023 Appropriations Act allocates $18 million to Cape Fear Public Utility Authority for drinking water extensions to unserved communities in New Hanover County impacted by PFAS, and allocated $17 million to the authority for municipal consolidation and regionalization of water and sewer systems in New Hanover County impacted by PFAS. And whereas these allocations will allow the authority to expand water and sewer infrastructure to unserved parts of the community without a cost burden to existing authority ratepayers. And whereas the 2023 Appropriations Act also allocates $30 million to the Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer Authority for completion of the 54-inch parallel raw water transmission main, which will protect the raw water supply of the authority and neighboring water utilities by providing redundancy and increasing raw water capacity. And whereas the 2023 Appropriations Act also appropriates $53 million to additional utility infrastructure projects for CFPUA's regional partners, including New Hanover County, that will benefit customers of the authority. And whereas the authority's legislative delegation was instrumental in securing funding for these projects and worked with the authority to prioritize our region's infrastructure needs in the state budget. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the authority recognizes and thanks our legislative delegation for their work on behalf of the authority's customers and continued partnership with the authority to protect our community from environmental contamination from polluters and to advance critical water and sewer infrastructure projects for southeastern North Carolina. On behalf of the board, we thank you for your tireless efforts. Our customers thank you, our community thanks you, and we so appreciate everything you have done for our organization. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. My apologies that you have to remain.
All right, so there's no public comments closed this month. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have 9 items. Any comments, questions?
On item number 3, low bidder disqualified previously admiral and anomalies in the bid. One of them being design.
Carl, do you want to comment on the bidder for that one project? This is in relation to the
Question was,
quarter
is
snap
the bid
elevator.
bond not included or was it just not executed?
The bid bond was not executed at all for that contractor. And in addition, there was various other items that were required with the bid to be submitted, like a subcontractor list, which was not included.
But the bond was included, but it was not properly executed.
It was not signed, yeah. It was not executed.
Okay. Usually, wouldn't it, the bid bond done properly, you even open the bid?
Well, the bid bond would be attached, it would be in the bid package itself. So we would, read the bid amounts, and then afterwards we do the review of all the attached paperwork. And it was, that's when it was discovered. And we reviewed it with our legal, and it was determined that it was not a valid bid.
Some of my questions on these items, I guess I could have asked prior to the meeting, but I didn't have enough time to do that. That's all I have
Okay.
now. On numbers.
Go ahead.
It's a little, oh, you did, I couldn't hear, yeah, so go ahead.
Well, on item number 6, what's the period of repayment for the unforgiven portion of that loan?
That would be for the lead gooseneck, okay. So the repayment starts when the project is done, and I believe the term was 20 years for paying back on the loan, if that was your question.
So, thanks.
Rob, you had a question on
Hey,
that?
just to follow up on that first one, the utility service, you use them for, right?
For the tank painting, I believe we have not. There's a company that has a very similar name for utility type work.
I was confused, I thought it was them, I just thought it was odd because it would screw up on something so basic, but this is a different company.
And they're out of state, yes.
Yeah, enjoy it. All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, motion to approve. Second, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to new business, we'll start with administrative report, attorney's report.
I don't have a report, but we do need to go into closed session.
Executive director's report.
Yes, we have within your agenda packet, 5 reports: the key indicators report, the safety report, the environmental report, and your strategic plan update. We also have the quarterly CIP update for the first and second quarter. Are there any questions?
Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you. On the key indicator reports, I can't remember in my time on this board, but I've seen a more balanced key indicator reports. It was really interesting, actually, went through it several times, kind of looking at it. But I feel like we've hit a really sweet spot. Am I correct? Yes. Thank you. And to that point, on the days bill charges outstanding, that if Christie's here, I guess, or whoever's appropriate, it looks like we have again hit this goal, or I don't know, it's a goal, it's something, this 33-day period. Looks like it's it. And I only bring it up because we've been talking about it now for 4 years, 3 years.
Yeah, I
Did
think.
we hit it, John?
Yeah, I think it's stabilized. I think over the past couple of years, there's been some pretty significant variables that have gone on. One is the pandemic and the suspension of turnoffs, right? So what you saw there is, customers weren't paying their bills because they didn't have to. There wasn't a consequence. So what you saw in terms of that metric was an increase in the number of days on average that it was taking, a customer to pay their charges. The other thing that has kind of resulted in that downward shift, so yeah, you had the turnoffs resume, so that caused that trend to kind of swing downwards. And then when we moved to monthly billing, call it the grace period, the period that you have to pay your bill went from 30 days to 25 days. So that kind of created a little bit of a shift there as well. So I think what we've seen is kind of a return to a normal state, a steady state, and that's reflected in that metric kind of sitting right around that 33-day mark.
Thanks.
If I might add, you may recall that several months ago we mentioned that we felt it was time through the committee process to revisit all of your key indicators reports and ensure that they're aligned with your strategic plan and that they have targets. And that the targets may have changed from when the key indicator report was first created. So you'll see us gradually returning with parts of the key indicators reports and some suggestions around targets. And of course, we've introduced 3 new key indicators as part of that process.
Thank you.
All right, any other items, questions for executive director's report? Okay. Moving into committee reports, the executive committee met last week. Those minutes are in your packet for review. Long-range planning meeting, planning committee from January.
Sure. Only planning that, January 25th, in the packet. At the meeting, we, got updates on 2 informational items, one was major projects for CFP for 2025, and also an update on connecting private well owners to CFPUA.
Any questions for long-range planning? Moving on to finance, those meetings are in our packet from February 7th, and I believe we have a monthly financials update as well.
Morning. So very briefly, okay, good. Looking at kind of our progress through the year in terms of our revenues and how they compare to our expenditures for the operating budget and the capital budget. You can kind of see where we're at. Our expenditures have exceeded our revenues through the first 6 months of the year. I think this appears to be a pretty significant number. I think we have a couple of things going on. I think we're catching up still in terms of the large debt service payment that was made in August. I mean, that's probably about 40% of our total debt service for the year happens early on in the fiscal year, and so the rest of the year we're kind of playing catch up a little bit. We also had some transfers. If you'll remember, we deliberately baked into rates this year, the rate increase this year, a transfer of, I think it was $4.23 million into a capital reserve for Southside, right? And so that transfer happened early on. We did it July 1 at the very beginning of the fiscal year. And then lastly, John, is there a little bit of a lag in revenues? And I'd say yes. We've kind of talked about it previously. I can go down to this slide. It's not the best way to look at it. If you were to look at things and say, well, this is as of January, so the last look was as of December, so this is another month. So we're 58.33%, 7 out of 12 months through the year, and you look at our progress in terms of our billings, actual billings compared to our budget for the year, and it's like, okay, well, these numbers are pretty close, maybe lagging just a little bit, but remember that these are seasonal numbers, right? So they're subject to higher consumption in the warmer, hotter, drier, kind of months. So you know, when you kind of look at maybe where things should be based on the seasonality that we've experienced over the past couple of years, I think that this lag actually is a little more pronounced. At the same time, I think we've kind of missed on the growth assumption that we put in for the growth in customers this year. So, I mean, we'll see how it shakes out, but I anticipate revenues being tight this year, if not maybe a little under where we projected. So that's kind of the explanation around this 9.2 right here. I mean, there's another 6 months left in the year. So as far as the capital side goes, it's kind of you know, the opposite. Why this is a positive number is largely because of that transfer, that $4.23 million transfer that happened at the beginning of the year. You know, that occurred during this year, and so that's explaining why that $3.9 million is the way it is. I did want to give a budget update just briefly. Next week we are going to be meeting with the leadership team, and actually an expanded leadership team, to start going through budgetary priorities. You know, both in terms of the strategic plan and also some enhancements to just our normal operations. Just to kind of set the scene again, you know, we talked about last year this plan to have steady rate increases over a number of years to kind of smooth out and kind of time to this peak of when the debt service for Southside was going to hit, right? So there's been a couple of things that have changed. You know, the legislature kind of unexpectedly handed us a change to the maximum assumed gallons per day per bedroom on the sewer side. And we've kind of projected that out looking at the model last year, and over the next 4 years, that's going to result in a total decrease in SDC revenues compared to what we projected last year of $22.6 million. That's a pretty big hit. So that's one thing. The other thing is that at this time last year, we had not yet been granted or received the $35 million SRF loan for Southside. The good thing about the SRF loans is that it allows you to defer the debt service, the principal and interest on that loan until the project's done. If we were to fund it with revenue bonds, you know, you issue the revenue bonds, and 6 months after that, you know, that debt service kicks in, right? So that is a good thing. We also have some reason to believe, and it's not official yet, that we may get another $35 million. So kind of sticking to that philosophy of, you know, smoothing to that peak of when the full impact of Southside would be realized in terms of, you know, the project being complete and that debt service kicking in, we may have the opportunity to smooth out over a longer period, which would help. So you have the SDCs that are kind of working against us. You have those SRFs that may give an opportunity to kind of help us out, you know, in terms of a increase to rates. So just wanted to kind of set the scene a little bit. We'll be talking more in depth about that in the next couple of meetings, but just wanted to give you that update. Are there any questions?
John, if you go back to that somewhat cryptic remark you made at the beginning of this about missing our projected growth numbers, and now factor that into what you just said here. You know, are we looking at, you know, have you done a full analysis with the new projection, or have you created a new projection?
So I have plugged in with revised SDC numbers, projections. updated customer growth assumptions, and also plugging in the operation, what we call the continuation budget. So that's kind of like a base budget. It assumes in 2025 dollars the same level of service that we offered in 2024, right? So plugging that in and looking at kind of sticking to that smoothing through 2028, we're talking about taking that 4.6 up to a 5.7. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Now, I think we may have the opportunity, and I think that it might make sense to do this instead of smoothing through 2028, which assumed all the debt service kicking in through a revenue bond issue. We got $70 million potentially that's going to kick in maybe in 2030. So maybe smoothing through 2030. These are just options. So I just kind of wanted to paint the picture, just take some broad strokes and kind of lay that out there.
So I want to add a note of caution. The creation of a budget, looking at this very complex model, has a lot of variables. What John is describing is some variables that are pushing up on the curve of rate increases and variables that are pushing down. We're going to meet as a staff on the 20th to bring the whole thing together and see what the most conservative and budget projection looks like. Then we're going to have in long-range planning a work session around CIP, if I remember correctly. And then I think this year we're going to have a separate work session around the total budgets because it warrants its own time frame and a lot of consideration, so that you could see all of the variables and where they're moving things, and then hear from us some ideas to mitigate any negative factors.
All right, I'll shut up.
Thank you.
So that's it for the,
The monthly.
financials. We have the economic impact. Impact.
Madam Chair, you have one other question I have, John, about this.
Sure.
John, your numbers take into account, the tremendous growth we're having on Sidbury Road. And I'm talking about those homes that are already completed. I was up there 2 weeks ago, or 10 days ago, cutting a ribbon. The DR Horton project alone is bringing online a lot of new single-family homes. Do your numbers, have those hit yet or not?
That's a great question. I'll say the short answer is no. When I do my customer projections, the growth projections, what I've traditionally done is kind of looked at like a 2 or 3 year history, right? And when I use that for this year, I missed, right? So what I've done is for that model that I just described, that model run that I just described, is I looked at growth in the past 6 months. So just this fiscal year, basically. So with that said, I've been talking about this revised monthly financial report, and I've been thinking about like a heat map for the SDCs, like where we're actually assessing those. I don't know for certain, but I think a lot of those homes have paid the SDC. They may not have sold yet, but if they've been completed, my thought would be that we've already assessed the SDCs for those. Christy, is that okay?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But we would see the growth later when they sign on these customers and pay it.
That's right.
See that?
That's right. And that's right.
That's not included. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
You want to kick this off? Or
This is John's show.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's let John talk about it.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So there was a more in-depth presentation made at the Finance Committee. I was not there. I was in Mobile, my hometown, with my family celebrating Mardi Gras. So, which was technically yesterday, but it's a whole season. Anyways, so yeah, we often talk about how CFPUA spending impacts the bills that our customers see, right? And rightly so. We're always continuously focused on being good stewards of our ratepayer dollars. Those dollars are entrusted to us, and we want to use them wisely, efficiently. However, we don't often take the opportunity to kind of zoom out and see how our investments reverberate throughout the entire region, right? To really get an understanding of just how critical we are to the local economy. So as part of the grant-funded consolidation and rate study project that you're familiar with, we also conducted an economic impact study to do exactly that, okay? So just as a note, the full report and the PowerPoint are in your packet. They're at the beginning. We moved it on the agenda. I won't be going through the entire report, nor will I be speaking from these slides, okay? I just wanted to briefly share some key points that I thought were important, but please feel free to ask any questions. So in my opinion, the study has two main takeaways that I'd like to share. So first is that CFPUA's direct spending, so the dollars that we spend as part of our operating budget, capital budget, has had a significant impact on job creation and economic output in our region. This study kind of focused on a 10-year look back, and that's what that analysis is based on. The second main takeaway kind of views the same issue in a slightly different way. It's talking about like service disruptions and the impact that those would have. So a service disruption would result in significant economic loss for our region. So the first key point, so what impact has our direct spending had in terms of job creation and economic output? Again, there was this 10-year look back that the economist kind of studied. And our direct spending, as many of you know, has a multiplier effect, right? So there's the direct spending that we have in our operating budget, our capital budget, but then the contractors and the suppliers that we pay have to hire labor. They have to purchase materials. And so, those workers, they earn money and they also spend. So there's kind of these three layers. There's a direct, an indirect, and what's called an induced, that final level. So what the study found is that for every $1 million that we've spent over the past 10 years, that supported 10.7 jobs in our local economy. In terms of that multiplier effect, for every $1 million that were spent over this past 10 years, that contributed another $660,000 to the local economy. And there's another section in the report that's kind of a comparison to other utilities in North Carolina. And, in terms of both jobs supported, jobs created, and that kind of multiplier effect, we compare very favorably. So we were looking at Greensboro, Charlotte, Fayetteville, and Raleigh, right? So the second piece is talking about the impact of a service disruption. So the study kind of points out that the region consists of a lot of water-dependent businesses. We got hospitals, colleges, restaurants, breweries, those types of things. Those water-dependent businesses account for approximately 37% of the total economic output in the county and 40% of the total employment in the county. And so kind of given that importance, or the importance of those water-dependent businesses, each day of water service disruption would result in a total economic output loss of between $70.4 million and $93.2 million. So kind of a big deal. And why there's a range there is it depends on the total length of the outage, right? So a shorter outage would be, maybe towards that lower end. If it was a 2-week outage or a 3-week outage or something crazy like that, it would be towards that higher end. And yeah, I think this just makes a kind of a strong case and reinforces this idea, that we continue our efforts in terms of redundancy and then rehab, right? So those were kind of my two main takeaways. The report kind of goes in to a couple more details. But as far as the next steps, I know, I think Vaughn and Cammie have put together a press release that we'll probably issue after this meeting. No? Next week? Sorry. We've also engaged with our business community. I think we had some members of the chamber and other organizations come to finance. And we'll be looking to share this information, with those folks. So, are there any questions? Ken, you have any comments?
If I might, we're suggesting that we present the full presentation at the Chamber's Public Policy Committee and see if that is impactful in a way that will allow us to partner more closely in future investment, especially Southside. Chamber's been instrumental in regional investment project discussion. So we're starting the process to put our own name forward as part of the chamber and encouraging them to work more closely with us to kind of get the messaging out and to work with us hand in hand in lobbying for resources. One of the things that struck me about the report, and by the way, for our representatives from the city or county, after reviewing the report and the presentation, if you find value, we'd be more than glad to come to a county meeting or a county committee, a city meeting or a city committee, and give the full report so that your peers could understand the impact of the authority that you represent also. Okay, so we'll work with John and Vaughn's team and your executives with the city and county to kind of work that in. But what really hit me was we employed 340 authorized positions, but the economic value supports over 1,000 positions in the last 10 years. And the investment we see going forward, which has to go up, may support as much as 1,400 positions. The dollar for dollar investment, for every dollar we take out of somebody's pocket, and we do, right? We want to keep the money in the economy as long as possible, but we take it out and we spend it on community assets. And that generates $1.66 of community assets. So that's the other side of the equation. So we are helping our business community understand what is the value of the investment that you are making with these very difficult decisions around capital projects and rate impacts. That's the purpose of this study.
John, thank you for featuring putting the focus on the water service disruptions part of it. Something that I've really not seen before, certainly in CFPUA, but other committees we serve on. It's kind of a unique way of looking at it from the other side, and I know it seems almost theoretical. But I know that Charlie and I know from our work at the Lower Cape Fear Water and Sewer just how, we're not out of the woods, but by, the water that we get from Kings Bluff, it comes down here, and due to some shoddy work that was done back in the 90s, how close we have come, and to remain today, to having exactly this, a major water disruption, where we would not be able to get a consistent supply of water from Kings Bluff. This is no theory. This is the real deal. And when you put the value to it, as you just did, the $70 to $90 million per day over a protracted period of a week or 2 weeks, I think that every person involved in government or business here should sit up and take notice. I think it's a really important part of this report, and I thank you,
It wouldn't just
Well said.
affect big water users, it would affect everybody.
everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tom. All right, I think that's it for Finance Committee, Sustainability Committee. I don't think we did not have a meeting in January, so no committee report. And now moving on to the consolidation study update.
The study is in your packet, just get down with the HDR prepared, PowerPoint presentation summarizes the utility company feasibility study and the path forward, basically the work. The report is complete, and there's no work we've done past this. I think it'll be a closed session, discuss consolidation issues. You have the abbreviated version.
That's the report, if anybody needs that.
You get a copy of that.
Killing 40 trees.
All right, more discussion in closed session. All right, moving on to old business, any old business to come for the board? All right, any closing comments? All right, can I take a motion to go into closed session to, go ahead.
Our motion to go into closed session is to receive instructions on negotiation of contract. It is also to receive information on confidential plans that are made to protect the public safety. And finally, it is to get advice from your attorney on Nix versus Chemours and DuPont and CFPUA.
Make a motion to do that.
Motion in a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Take 5 minutes to go to closed session.